Hello and welcome to another Power Rangers off-season review. Last week we took a look at the top 10 villains in the Power Rangers franchise. But you can't have the good without the bad, so this week we're going to take a look at the 10 worst villains. First, I'd like to address something based on some things I saw in the voting comments on last week's video. These lists, the top 10 best villains and the top 10 worst villains, are addressing the 20 primary villains in the show's history. But Sean, you say, haven't there been 21 seasons of Power Rangers? Yes, there have. However, thankfully for making two top 10 lists, Master Xandred was the main villain of both Power Rangers Samurai and Power Rangers Super Samurai. So there have been 20 primary villains. But also, this means that these lists do not address side villains. I realize that this leaves out some wonderful villains, generals like Ecliptor, and background manipulators like Vrock that would probably place very high on a top 10 list of villains. I may at some point go back and do a top 10 and bottom 10 overall villains list, but for now, we're just dealing with the bosses. So with all that established, let's get to work sorting the remaining 10 villains into the bottom 10 villains list. Now, a bottom 10 list obviously counts down opposite from a top 10 list. Picture the two lists next to each other facing opposite directions. The number 1 worst villain will be the one furthest away from not only the number 1 top villain, but the number 10 top villain, while the number 10 worst villain is nearly on the top 10 list. Number 10. King Mondo, Power Rangers Zeo. So, number 10 on this list is the villain that's basically number 11 on the top 10 list, the one that came closest to making that list. I rather like King Mondo. He has a great regal attitude and this feeling of just manifest destiny at taking over the Earth. It never even occurs to him that he'll fail to take over the planet. It's simply a matter of when. And he was tough. He fought the team of Rangers that many people see as the strongest in terms of power levels, the Zeo Rangers. The Zeo Crystal was a perpetual energy generator growing ever stronger. But King Mondo took on the Zeo Rangers a few times and actually held them off himself. Even at the very end, he was defeated by the Zeo Rangers, but even then survived to be destroyed by Rita and Zed. However, King Mondo falls just short of the top 10 because he never really changes and he doesn't do much. He was a big one for, we'll get them next time. I know that does fit into that whole manifest destiny thing that I was talking about, but it just made him kind of boring. And also, he just kind of disappears for a while. That did give us a chance to have some nice power struggle stories with other characters in the Machine Empire, but main villain disappearance is always points off. It was King Mondo's manifest destiny to appear as the number 10 worst villain. Number 9. Master Vile, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Season 3. Okay, this is kind of cheating a little, especially when I pointed out that I'm just going for main villains. But while Zed and Rita were the main villains of Season 3, when Master Vile was on the scene, he was in charge, much to Zed's irritation. Master Vile brought a sense of maturity to the Moon Palace, especially after Rita and Zed's bickering and general pettiness. He magnified the sense of what is taking so long that Zed started with Rita. Also, he's helped by the fact that he was the one who put the plan into place that finally ended the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Yes, Rita and Zed actually destroyed the power coins, but it was Master Vile who turned the Rangers into children so they couldn't morph. The reason that Master Vile lands here is we know so little about him. He's the ruler of the M51 galaxy, he's Rita and Rito's father, and he even rules above Lord Zed. He makes monsters by puking up eggs. And that's it. I know we don't get as deep a backstory for villains as we do the Rangers, but when they establish that he's family to villains that we already know, let's find out a little about him. Come on, Master Vile, don't be sad. Not only are you not the worst villain on this list, you're not even the worst master. Master Vile comes in at number 9. Number 8, Venjix, Power Rangers RPM. As you guys are going to find out later on this off-season, RPM is one of my favorite seasons of Power Rangers. It's just so much more dark and mature than we usually get, and its characters are very deep and engaging. In RPM, the world has been all but destroyed by a computer virus run amok, creating evil robots to take over the world. Only one safe city remains. It's just so much darker and more mature than we usually get. Except for its villain. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot to like about Venjix. He's calculating, as a computer virus, I would hope so. He's cold, and he's probably one of the more successful villains in the show's history. It's just that he's not very relatable. He spends the vast majority of the show as this canister thing. And then even when he does get bodies, they're robots and they don't convey a lot of emotion. His plan with Tenaya was genius, calling back to Astronema somewhat. But she really ended up being the stronger character, especially with her connection to Dylan. There just wasn't much about Venjix that resonated. But his success as a villain and his cold, calculating nature put him at number 8. I felt the need to put a bit of a stop break right here at the list. King Mondo, Master Vile, and Venjix are villains that could possibly make the top 10 list if I were to redo it at some point. They're just near misses. The villains from here on down, however, are bad misses. These are the villains that I do not like at all. So let's start that part of the list by saying, all hail the Queen. Number 7, Queen Bansheera, Power Rangers, Lightspeed Rescue. Queen Bansheera had a good plan with elements like Ryan and empowering her son, Impus Olympius. She also clearly inspired fear in her lackeys, controlling generals like Diabolico, when honestly, I think he could take her. And also, coming from the Sentai, yes, her appearance was truly dark and frightening. However, Queen Bansheera took not doing anything to a whole new level. We spend the start of the show just waiting for her to show up. And then when she finally does, one ranger puts the stall on that, encasing her new form in stone. She only gets free near the end of the show, and at that point, yes, her plan nearly succeeds, but really that was due more to Jinxer putting a battling card on the Megazord than anything she did herself. I've got surprisingly little to say about her. She's a boring villain in a season that honestly comes off as a little bit dry. Number 7. Number 6, The Master, or Optimus, Power Rangers Mystic Force. Alright, first explaining the name thing. Throughout Power Rangers Mystic Force, he's only referred to as the Master. However, an episode that was later made available on iTunes had a description that referred to him as Optimus, and then later, a Power Rangers action card game card referred to him as that as well. Whatever his name is, this is Queen Bansheera to another level. Now again, like her, he clearly inspires fear in those that serve him. He's either respected and served or plotted around, but either way, he's gonna have to be dealt with. Even the 10 Terrors, a group of monsters near his power level that could probably easily take him down if they work together, still respect and serve him. But at least Queen Bansheera was able to communicate while trapped. For most of the season, the Master doesn't even have a voice. He just growls in disapproval at certain times. We only see him at the end of the season. Only then does he get a voice. Only then does he get a character. And so all of it comes across as very two-dimensional. He's sure not the Master of this list. The Master is number 6. Number 5, Master Xandred, Power Rangers Samurai and Super Samurai. Master Xandred was a Nihilok warrior that had been fighting generations of Samurai Rangers for thousands of years. A previous injury gave him headaches, which required the near constant drinking of medicine. Yeah, let me go ahead and lift the veil on that one. The Shinkendra footage that adapts, the medicine is actually sake, a Japanese alcoholic beverage. His base of operations is a junk, or old boat, on the Sanzu River, which is involved in Japanese death lore. Xandred is scary looking and gruff and just overall very mean. He's never really warm or nice, even to his own lackeys. The only one who gets any sort of affection is Dayu, and that's as much because her instrument can lessen his headaches as anything else. The main thing hurting Master Xandred, dragging him this high up on the list, is that a lot of the times he just doesn't seem to care. Especially when we get to Super Samurai, some of his other generals will come up with a plan and he's not even really involved, telling them to do whatever they feel like. He really does come across as a drunk, even if it is just medicine. He makes one incredibly random attack on the human world, and then has to spend weeks recovering from it at the bottom of the Sanzu River. Another main villain disappearance. And then when he finally comes back, he executes his master plan, which is attacking the human world to flood it with the Sanzu River, which was his plan from the very beginning. Take another shot, Xandred, because you are number 5. Number 4, The Villains Collective, Operation Overdrive. It's kind of funny, both of these lists have had shockers pop up at the number 4 spot. On the best villains list, it was that Rita Repulsa was so low, and on this list, it's that apparently Operation Overdrive's villains weren't the worst in the show's history. Full disclosure, this spot actually changed hands during script writing. I had another villain at number 3, but when I was writing their description and then writing the Overdrive villain's description, I actually liked the villains of Overdrive just a little bit better, so I made a switch. Yes, in something of a first for the series, Overdrive used a fully faction-based villain system. First up were the brothers Malkor and Florius, who each had their own grunts and were determined to get the Corona Aurora. Following them was the evil woman Miratrix, who shortly thereafter freed her mentor Camdor. And then around the time the Mercury Rangers showed up, so did his rivals, the Fear Cats. As Linkara pointed out in his review of this season, each of the groups had different motivations and abilities. Some had grunts, some could make monsters, some could build giant robots. None of the groups liked each other, which actually gave us some great original footage of groups fighting each other from time to time. Though, of course, they did sometimes form alliances, because that's probably what factionist villain groups would do. They were all united just once by the son of Rita and Zed, Thorax, and they not only thoroughly defeated the Overdrive Rangers, but managed to disconnect them from the morphing grid. It took a team up of the Overdrive Rangers and 5 past Rangers to finally defeat them. The problem with the Overdrive Villains Collective is that they're so spread out, there's so many of them, that it's hard to get to know any of them on a deeper level, so they all come across as a little bit two-dimensional. Camdor and especially Miratrix just seem greedy, the Fear Cats just seem angry, and Malkor and Florius almost seem to want the crown more so their brother doesn't get it. Florius is the one who finally wins out here, and he is promptly owned by a battleized Mac. So, just like the rest of Operation Overdrive, the Villains Collective was wasted potential, and they land at number 4. Number 3, Admiral Malkor, Power Rangers Megaforce. Oh boy, we're getting into the most recent seasons, Megaforce and Super Megaforce. Admiral Malkor, what can I say about him? Seriously, what can I say? Megaforce did have a bit of a Villains Collective thing going on as well, although theirs were one at a time and broke that season up into chunks. Malkor was the first, but seriously, Biggs and Blue Fur and Metal Alice were not any more memorable. Malkor was some kind of a Mothman. He wanted to study and then defeat humans. He did believe insects were a superior life form, kind of Mesagogish. I am really digging to come up with something positive about him. You know, the only thing I can really come up with is there's something about him that convinced Brock that he needed to bide his time under him. There is just nothing memorable about Admiral Malkor. I just watched most of Megaforce a few months ago, and I still can't remember much about him. Megaforce is a season that Saban wanted to just get out of the way, and Admiral Malkor makes that very clear. Number 3 on our list goes to... Wait, who's at number 3 again? Can't remember. Alrighty, just like last time, let's get a recap in before going to the final 2. His kingship may be Mondo, but he's good enough to barely be bad at number 10. I hope he doesn't call his kids. Master Vile is number 9. Begin the download. Venjix is number 8. All Hail the Queen? Not really. Queen Bansheera lands at number 7. Don't confuse this The Master with Doctor Who's. This one is number 6. All the Masters ended up down here. Xandred is number 5. There were 4 factions in Overdrive's villains cadre. Fitting, number 4. And some moth guy who's quickly fading from memory is number 3. And then there were 2. And fittingly, in this case, we pit the most recent villain of the show against one from very early in the show's history. Yes, it's the whiniest prince in villain history, Prince Vekar, against the queen of pirate mean, Divatox. Number 2, Prince Vekar, Power Rangers Super Mega Force. A lot of people don't like Lothar because he's a comedic villain. Since I liked him, the only thing I can try to do to understand that is imagine that a lot of people see Lothar like they see Prince Vekar. Vekar is played to character, a spoiled brat who inherited his position from his more powerful father. He's the younger brother of Rock, and once overheard his father, Emperor Mabro, tell his right-hand man Damaras to watch over him, calling him bumbling and inept. Thus, he does have a driving desire to prove himself, and he does get involved in battle, though only twice to memory. The first time, he stood behind his soldiers the entire time until Noah landed a shot, whereupon he freaks out, nearly faints, and retreats. The second time, he gets a Megazord from Daddy and gets so caught up in taking down the Rangers that it ultimately kills him. The reason the prince lands here and not at the top is he's supposed to be this way. It's not like he's acting out of character. He just is what he is. And hey, he did lead the strongest invasion force the Earth has ever seen. And yes, I do mean the strongest. When the United Alliance of Evil tried to invade Earth and Countdown to Destruction, it was said that there were thousands of ships. When the Armada launched their final assault on Earth, it was said that there were hundreds of thousands of ships, possibly in the millions. But he was so annoying, so eye-rolling on so many occasions that that accomplishment can only drag him up to number 2. Number 1, Divatox, Power Rangers Turbo. Ah, Divatox, the pirate queen that we all love to hate, and boy do we mean that. Her story begins in the motion picture where she seeks to revive and marry Dark Spectre. Apparently that's his twin brother, Malkor. When the Rangers destroy him, she becomes focused on revenge against them. Just because. Not to take over the Earth, not for any other kind of conquest or wealth. Just, you hurt me, I hurt you. Pettiness defines Divatox. Her plans were usually absolutely moronic and usually didn't want to do more than just ruin something about the Rangers' day. She didn't get focused on actually taking over the planet until about near the end of the season. And the fact that she just about did take over the planet infuriates many Ranger fans. Divatox is even more whiny, if just barely, than Vekar, but enjoys far more success. Can I hold that success against her if it's part of what makes me hate her so much? Maybe not, but she did also fail to stand up for herself. Having conquered Earth, defeated the Power Rangers, some floating evil head just needs to say, Dark Spectre, and let's go! Not even leaving an occupying force. That's some really bad decision making. There are villains you love to hate, then there are villains you hate to love, and then there are villains you just hate. Divatox stands tall on the top of this list, the worst villain in Power Rangers history. Well, that's going to do it for our 2-week look at the main bosses of Power Rangers, sorted neatly 1 through 20. But apparently I'm not out of the sorting mood just yet. Tune in next week as I try to sort through the entire Ranger army and pick out a top 10 list. Alright, as promised, it is now time for the Viewer's Choice Awards. I would like to thank everybody for leaving comments and voting. We did just barely get to the required 10 votes, but we got there. So once again, thanks everyone for voting, and let's take a look. The Viewer's Choice Awards are hardly a surprise, as they are the two villains I knew people would be surprised I didn't pick at the top of either list. With 4 votes, the VC Award for Worst Villain goes to the Overdrive Villains Collective. And, also with 4 votes, the VC Award for Best Villain goes to Lord Zed. Again, thanks for voting. And the winner of the voter shoutout is WebShooters1. You can check out their YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/webshooters1. Also, their channel info mentions a non-profit anime stream called Anime Plaza, airing from 8 to 11 every Friday. Check with them to see if that's still something that's going on. Thanks once again for voting, everybody. Alright, since that was so successful, let's do it again. Leave me comments down below voting on your favorite Power Ranger. And when I say your favorite Power Ranger, vote for the powers, not the character. Vote for MMPR Green or MMPR White, not Tommy. And if you do pick a Ranger that has been other Rangers, try to base your vote on their character at the time, because that's how I'm going to be doing this. Once again, if we get 10 votes, we'll have a Viewer's Choice Award, and I'll pick a random vote to do a shout out for. That's going to wrap up another Power Rangers off-season reviews. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the video by clicking the like button right down below. If you're new here, please subscribe to see all of my Power Rangers videos each week. And leave some comments down below for me to read. Especially remember to leave your votes for your favorite individual Power Ranger. Until next time, may the power protect you. Alright, listen, last week there were a couple of people, one person in particular, who didn't really appreciate my little gag at the end of the video like I've been doing for the past few weeks. And to that person, I really just want to say, look!